Welcome to our channel, where dramatic, unexpected, and inspiring stories are brought to life in the most vivid way. In today's video, you'll witness an unbelievable moment. A successful Black CEO being blocked at the lobby of a luxury hotel simply because of arrogant discrimination from the staff. They thought they could embarrass her, but just minutes later, they were the ones filled with regret. This is not just a story of humiliation and sweet revenge, but also a powerful reminder of strength, resilience, and true self-worth. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss more thrilling and inspiring stories like this. Here you'll find experiences that spark curiosity, stir emotions, and keep you hooked until the very last second. That afternoon, golden sunlight poured over the boulevard in front of the city's most luxurious hotel. It was the kind of place where CEOs, celebrities, and politicians strutted through revolving doors like they owned the world. The glass panels shimmered, reflecting the figure of a woman in a perfectly tailored black suit. That was her, a Black CEO, a woman who built her empire with her own hands and brilliant mind. Her steps carried a confidence so natural that passers-by couldn't help but turn their heads. But it wasn't the designer suit or the luxury handbag that caught attention. It was her aura, the aura of someone who had clawed her way from the bottom to the top, who had endured rejection, humiliation, and setbacks, only to become a symbol of resilience and success. She approached the hotel entrance, a soft smile tugging at her lips. In her mind, the plan was simple: a quiet evening, a glass of red wine, and a few business calls. That's it. But life loves irony. Just as she was about to step inside, a hotel staff member, tall, slick hair shining with gel, raised his hand to block her. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said with a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. "This hotel doesn't allow casual visitors. It's reserved for members and special guests only." She froze for a split second, wondering if she heard him correctly. Members? Special guests? She had equity stakes in hotels far more exclusive than this one. Instead of exploding in anger, she let out a soft laugh. Not a laugh of amusement, but of disbelief at how ridiculous the situation was. "Oh." She tilted her head slightly, her voice calm but edged with sarcasm. "Are you sure you want to stop me from walking in?" The staffer gave her a once-over, his eyes dripping with judgment. "I'm very sure, ma'am. This hotel isn't the right fit for your style." Nearby, people started noticing. Some stifled giggles behind their hands, others widened their eyes in shock that this was happening at all. The Black CEO straightened her back, her gaze flickering with fire. She didn't feel humiliated. She felt amused. They had no idea who they were dealing with. "Very well," she said, her tone warm yet razor-sharp. "If you want to play this game, I'll show you the consequences sooner than you think." With an enigmatic smile, she pulled out her phone. Her phone lit up in her hand, the screen catching the gleam of her sharp, fiery eyes. With one effortless swipe, she scrolled through her contacts, not looking for just anyone, but dialing directly to people who actually held power in the hotel industry. The staffer blocking her way still wore that smug grin, convinced she was bluffing. He even crossed his arms and leaned toward his coworker, whispering, "Another one of those guests who think a phone call can change the rules." Around them, the lobby buzzed with murmurs. An older couple squinted and whispered, "She looks familiar. I swear we saw her in Forbes magazine." But most people just stood there, curious. A few snickering, as though they were watching a small spectacle unfold right in the grand lobby. Meanwhile, the CEO remained calm, her voice crisp and steady as she spoke into the phone. "Alfred, I'm standing right outside your hotel, and it seems your staff here has decided to test my patience." On the other end, a man chuckled nervously, the sound mixing disbelief with urgency. Alfred wasn't just an old friend. He was a major shareholder in this luxury hotel chain. He immediately grasped the situation and lowered his voice with authority. "Give me a few minutes. I'll handle this. Don't go anywhere." She ended the call, slipped her phone back into her bag, and lifted her chin to meet the staffer's gaze. Her eyes weren't angry. They were smoldering, like embers waiting to ignite. "You know," she said slowly, "sometimes a small decision can change the course of a person's life. And you just made one of those decisions. The staffer's brow furrowed, a flicker of doubt flashing across his face, but he tried to maintain his arrogance. Are you threatening me? She laughed, a sound that rang through the opulent lobby with effortless dominance. Oh no, I don't threaten people. I simply let them experience the consequences themselves. The atmosphere shifted instantly. The murmurs died. Every eye in the lobby fixed on the woman in the black suit, the one they thought was just a casual visitor, but whose very presence now commanded silence, respect, and a creeping sense of dread. The air in the hotel lobby seemed frozen. The staffer began to feel a tightening in his chest. The confident smile of the woman before him hadn't wavered an inch. Moments later, the sharp clack of shoes echoed from the elevator. A man in a navy blue suit, red tie, and tense expression strode quickly toward the scene. He was the shift manager, the one in charge of running the entire operation. What's going on here? He barked, his eyes sweeping over the crowd before landing squarely on the staffer blocking the door. The once smug staffer swallowed hard. His voice cracked as he stammered, Sir, I was only following protocol. I didn't think she fit the standards of the hotel. The manager frowned, but before he could respond, the grand doors suddenly swung open. A group of sharply dressed men entered, commanding attention. At the center was Alfred, the shareholder she had just called. He stormed forward, his face dark with fury. Why was my distinguished guest stopped at the door? Alfred's voice was low, clipped, every word a blade. The entire lobby held its breath. All eyes shifted to the woman in the tailored black suit. No one dared to laugh now. The black CEO smiled, folding her arms with an ease that made the entire moment feel like a staged comedy. I told you, she said evenly, her tone carrying the weight of inevitability. Small decisions can change lives. And today, someone is about to find that out. The staffer went pale, stumbling back a step, while the shift manager broke into a cold sweat. He bowed his head hastily, words tumbling out in panic. Ma'am, this was a terrible misunderstanding. Please, I beg you to let it go. But it was already too late. The story had spun beyond their control. The murmur in the lobby vanished, replaced by a suffocating silence. Alfred stepped forward, his glare locked on the manager, as if one more flimsy excuse might set him ablaze with fury. Do you even know who she is? Alfred thundered. The manager trembled, glancing at his staffer before stammering back. I didn't get the chance to verify her identity. With a sharp crack, Alfred slammed his shareholder card onto the reception desk, the sound echoing like a gavel. He pointed straight at the black CEO. She is one of the largest partners of this hotel chain. The very woman who once saved this company from financial ruin years ago. She isn't just a guest. She's the reason you still have a job today. The lobby erupted. Gasps filled the air. People realized they had indeed seen her face. On the cover of business magazines, in articles about the black CEO who inspired millions. She stood tall, face composed, eyes gleaming with steel. She didn't need to raise her voice or explain. The truth was undeniable. The staffer had gone ghostly pale, lips trembling, but no words would come. The manager, drenched in cold sweat, bent low and stammered, Ma'am, I am so sorry. Please give me a chance to make this right. She smiled faintly, a smile both gentle and terrifying. Stepping forward, her voice rolled through the lobby, calm yet commanding. A chance? Unfortunately, chances aren't given to those who judge others at a glance. And today, you'll learn that lesson in the harshest way possible. Every eye in the room fixed on her. In that instant, it was clear the real battle had only just begun. The hotel lobby was so silent now that the ticking of the wall clock echoed like a drumbeat. The black CEO strode toward the reception desk, each strike of her heels against the marble floor sounding like thunder announcing a storm. The receptionist instantly dropped her gaze, the manager nearly buckling at the knees. But she didn't look at them. Instead, she pulled out her phone once more, her fingers flying across the screen with deliberate precision. HR department? Her voice cut like ice. I want the executive director of this hotel chain here, immediately. I don't care where he is. Within 10 minutes, I expect him standing right in front of me. The words sent a shockwave through the lobby. No one dared breathe too loudly. Security guards hesitated, unsure whether to intervene or retreat. Some guests looked thrilled, as though they were watching a high-stakes drama unfold live before their eyes. Meanwhile, Alfred stood beside her, arms crossed, nodding with a knowing smile. He had seen this side of her before. When she gave an order, entire systems moved. She lifted her chin, casting a glance at the manager and the staffer who had blocked her earlier. Her gaze wasn't furious anymore. It was judicial, like a judge awaiting the execution of a verdict. "You're still standing here?" she asked, her tone soft yet slamming like a gavel. "Good. I want you both to witness exactly what happens when someone dares to underestimate another human being." The manager shivered, lips trembling. The staffer's shirt was already soaked in sweat, his earlier arrogance replaced by raw regret. But it was too late. The true storm was about to hit. 10 minutes passed, but for everyone in the lobby, it felt like a century. All eyes remained glued to the woman in the tailored black suit, as though she was presiding over a public trial. Then the hotel's revolving doors swung open. A convoy of luxury cars had just pulled up outside, and moments later, a middle-aged man in a gray suit entered. He was the executive director of the entire hotel chain, a face well known in business magazines. The atmosphere exploded. Staff bowed so low it looked painful. The shift manager nearly collapsed, and the staffer who had blocked the CEO at the entrance was trembling like a leaf in a storm. The director's eyes scanned the room before landing on her. For a brief second, he froze, then hurried forward, extending both hands. "My God, I deeply apologize for this unacceptable incident. Had we known you were coming, we would have prepared a reception fit for a head of state." His words boomed across the lobby, but no one heard sincerity, only the sweat-soaked desperation of a man terrified of disaster. The black CEO didn't take his hand. She stood tall, arms crossed, her gaze cold. Tilting her head slightly, she replied, "A reception fit for a head of state? That's amusing. All I wanted was to enter without being demeaned at the door. Apparently that's too extravagant for this place." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Her words cut like a blade, slicing through the hotel's polished facade. Alfred smirked. The director flushed crimson, bowing again and again in apology. The manager and the staffer, meanwhile, looked like they wished the ground would swallow them whole. The CEO swept her gaze over them, then spoke slowly, each word heavy as stone. "It's time for a change in this place, and I'll be the one to start that change. Today." The atmosphere in the hotel lobby grew so heavy it felt as though no one dared to breathe. The black CEO stepped closer to the front desk, her gaze sweeping over both the manager and the staffer. Neither of them moved, frozen in fear. "He's the shift manager, correct?" she asked, her voice cutting like steel. The executive director nodded furiously, sweat dripping down his forehead. "Yeah, that's right." She turned to Alfred, a wry smile curling her lips. "Strange, isn't it? A brand that claims to embody excellence, yet puts its public face in the hands of men this small-minded." The crowd stirred. Some guests even lifted their phones, recording the scene. This was no longer a minor mishap. It had become a public scandal. The CEO raised her hand and pointed directly at the manager. "You're fired," effective immediately. The words cracked through the air like thunder. The manager collapsed, stammering, Please give me another chance." But she didn't flinch. Her gaze snapped to the staffer, the one who had stopped her at the door with a sneer of disdain. "And you," she said firmly, "I don't want to see you in any hotel of this chain again. As of today, you no longer work here." A ripple of shock and excitement surged through the lobby. Some guests looked almost thrilled, as though justice had been served right before their eyes. The staffer turned ghostly pale, eyes wet, his body trembling as he bowed in shame. The executive director bent nearly in half, his voice hurried and desperate. "Ma'am, your orders will be carried out immediately. I give you my word." The black CEO gave a calm nod. "Good. Remember, this isn't about revenge. I will not allow anyone in this system to tarnish the reputation I helped build. This isn't personal, it's about honor." Every eye in the lobby looked at her with awe. In that moment, she was no longer a casual visitor. She was a symbol of power, delivering justice in the heart of the city's most luxurious hotel. The lobby erupted after her decisive declaration. A few guests clapped softly at first. Then the applause grew louder, rolling through the room like a wave. The manager and the staffer kept their heads bowed, shuffling away in utter humiliation, leaving behind a brutal lesson for everyone who had witnessed the scene. The black CEO stood tall, her face serene, her eyes glowing with pride. Not out of gloating, but because she knew this action was necessary, not only for herself, but for everyone who would walk through these doors in the future. The executive director was still shaken. He kept bowing, his voice trembling. "Ma'am, we promise to review the entire system. No one will ever be allowed to repeat this mistake. Please believe me when I say this hotel will change. Completely." She nodded slightly, a faint smile curling her lips. "I'll be watching. But remember, real change doesn't come from apologies. It comes from how you treat every single guest, no matter who they are." The crowd murmured again, but this time it wasn't mockery. It was admiration. Many eyes shone with respect, as though they had just seen justice itself delivered in real life. Alfred stepped forward, resting a hand lightly on her shoulder with a smile. "Once again, you've impressed me. And I think not just them, but this entire city will have to learn a lesson from you." She only shrugged, her gaze sweeping across the lavish lobby. For her, this was only the beginning. The real battle still lay ahead, not just to humble a few hotel employees, but to shift the way society itself viewed people like her. The news spread like wildfire. Within hours of the incident, images and videos of the CEO's confrontation with the hotel staff had surfaced online. A young guest in the lobby had recorded the entire scene on his phone and posted it on TikTok. By the next morning, the clip had millions of views, with comment sections exploding. "This is what real justice looks like." One user wrote, "She's incredible, standing up for herself and her dignity." Another praised, but there were also bitter voices hiding behind screens. This was just a stunt. Rich people love showing off their power. Don't forget, she only got lucky, not because she's talented. The black CEO saw it all, yet she wasn't angry. Instead, she smiled faintly. She knew true power wasn't in the praise or criticism, it was in leaving a mark that could never be erased. The next morning, headlines blazed across newspapers. Black CEO denied at five-star hotel, manager and staff fired on the spot. Major outlets dissected the story, from issues of discrimination to the strength of a black woman leading in business. Alfred called her early, his voice buzzing with excitement. "Do you realize? The whole city is talking about you, and I'm certain this is only the beginning. They won't just talk about the hotel. They'll start questioning the way society treats people like us." She stood by the window of her penthouse, sipping a steaming cup of coffee. Sunlight bathed her face in gold. "Let's see," she murmured. "If society needs a push to change, then I'm more than ready to give it that push." The incident didn't stop at viral clips on social media. Major news channels picked up the story, hosting debates and interviews with experts. Heated discussions broke out. Was this just an isolated mistake or a reflection of systemic discrimination in the luxury service industry? Competitor hotel chains wasted no time. One luxury brand released a bold ad overnight. "Here, every guest is a VIP, no room for discrimination." The slogan spread rapidly, a slap in the face to the hotel brand drowning in scandal. The black CEO sat in her glass-walled office, watching the news ticker roll endlessly across the giant TV screen. Her secretary walked in, arms full of morning newspapers. "Ma'am, most major outlets are praising you, but a few tabloids are pushing the opposite angle. They're saying you were too harsh, too unforgiving toward the employees." She chuckled softly. "Harsh? If they knew what real cruelty looked like, they'd think differently." "I'm not harsh. I'm fair." Her desk phone rang. It was an invitation from a national television network asking her to appear in a live interview about the incident. They wanted to hear it straight from her, why she reacted so strongly. Alfred, seated across from her, nodded thoughtfully. "This is your chance. A chance to turn an incident into a platform. If you frame it right, you won't just win this story, you'll win the public's support." She sipped her coffee, her eyes gleaming with determination. "Fine," she said. "If they want to hear me, they'll hear me. Not just my story, but the story of everyone who's ever been disrespected the way I was. The day of the interview arrived faster than she expected. The national television studio gleamed under blinding lights, with a packed audience in the seats and millions more watching from their homes. The famous host, known for his razor-sharp questions, looked almost eager tonight. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "our guest today has shaken the nation. A billionaire CEO, whose name has dominated every headline this week. Please welcome the Black CEO." Thunderous applause filled the room. She stepped out in a simple, elegant dress, her soft smile paired with an aura of confidence. The studio held its breath, aware this wasn't just an interview, it was a declaration. The host wasted no time. "Some call you brave. Others call you ruthless. How do you respond to this divided reaction?" She sat tall, her gaze fixed straight into the camera. "Ruthless?" she repeated with a faint smile. "Ruthless is looking at another human being and deciding they don't deserve to walk through a door because of their skin color or appearance. I'm not ruthless. I simply refuse to tolerate injustice." Applause erupted, echoing like thunder. The camera panned to the audience, heads nodding vigorously, eyes glistening with emotion. The host pressed on. "Do you see this incident as a personal story or as part of something bigger?" She tilted her head, her voice warm but unyielding. "This isn't just my story. How many of us have been belittled, turned away, had doors slammed in our faces? I was simply fortunate enough to have the power to push back. But that doesn't make anyone else less worthy. If society needs a reminder that every human being deserves respect, then I'll gladly be that reminder." The studio erupted. People rose to their feet, clapping wildly. Her name and message shot to the top of trending hashtags within minutes. Bathed in the studio's brilliant lights, she knew this wasn't just an interview. This was the spark of a movement. The interview ended, but its impact did not. Within hours, clips of her most powerful lines spread like wildfire across every platform. Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, all flooded with her poised figure, sitting tall with pride, declaring, "I'm not ruthless. I simply refuse to tolerate injustice." International media jumped on the story. A London paper ran the headline, "Black CEO turns humiliation into a movement." In Paris, she was hailed as the woman reshaping how the world views power and respect. Even across Asia, television networks covered the incident, calling it a global reminder of the need for fair treatment. In the business world, a domino effect had begun. Luxury corporations rushed to release statements pledging to combat discrimination in all forms. Some brands went further, reaching out directly to her, proposing partnerships for campaigns on fairness and diversity. In her penthouse, the Black CEO sat before her laptop, scrolling through a flood of emails, offers for collaborations, letters of support, and even heartfelt notes from ordinary people who had once been humiliated in public spaces. She leaned back in her chair, a small smile playing on her lips. Who could have imagined that what started as a personal incident at a hotel door would ignite a worldwide wave? Alfred called, his voice bursting with excitement. "You see? I told you, one small action, massive impact. And now the whole world is watching you," she answered softly, her tone steady yet resolute. "Then it's time I do more. If they see me as the voice of change, I won't let them down. Success always comes with enemies." As the Black CEO's name spread across the globe, shadowy forces began to stir. Rival corporations, uneasy at the thought of a Black woman rising as a global symbol of justice, held closed-door meetings. They knew that if she continued to embody fairness and dignity, their own influence would be threatened. Soon, anonymous articles surfaced. Tabloids claimed she had been ruthless toward her own employees. Others suggested she staged the hotel incident as a publicity stunt. An anonymous account even leaked doctored photos, insinuating a scandalous relationship with a prominent politician. Social media erupted once again, but this time in division. Many still defended her, but doubts began to creep in. What if it was all just a show? In her office, lights burning late into the night, the CEO sat before her screen, scrolling through the flood of negative headlines. Her assistant fretted, "Ma'am, they're trying to smear your image. If this isn't handled carefully, The public could turn against you. She sipped her tea, her face calm though her eyes burned with fire. I expected this. When you stand tall, someone will always try to pull you down. But what they forget is, I didn't build my empire on lies. I built it on truth and results. She turned to Alfred, who had been watching silently. He nodded. We won't just react. We'll go on the offensive. If they want a media war, then let's show them what real power looks like. She smiled faintly. Good, let them attack. I'll turn every arrow they fire into proof of my strength. And with that, a new battle in the war of public opinion had just begun. Just one day after the smear campaign flooded the media, the Black CEO struck back. But instead of ranting, denying, or battling word for word, she chose a different path: action. That morning, she appeared in a struggling working-class neighborhood, somewhere no journalist expected her to go. Not in an elegant gown, but in a plain white shirt, jeans, and her hair tied back. No entourage of bodyguards or luxury cars, just a handful of trusted colleagues and a truck full of building materials. We're starting construction of a free vocational training center here, she declared before cameras and residents alike. This place will welcome those turned away elsewhere, whether unemployed workers, single mothers, or young people cast aside by society. The images spread at lightning speed. While her rivals busied themselves with rumors, she was proving her worth through real action. Social media buzzed with praise. They said she was fake, but she's building a real training center. This is the difference between talk and action. Her rivals suddenly found themselves in a bind. Their smear campaign backfired. Public opinion now demanded to know, and what have you done besides spreading rumors? Alfred called the moment the news broke, his voice brimming with excitement. You've just turned their media war into your personal victory. The more they attack, the brighter you shine. The Black CEO smiled faintly, standing in the middle of the dusty construction site as hammers clanged and drills roared. Good. Let the world see. I don't just talk. I build. And once it's built, no one can deny the truth. Within just a few days, the tide had turned completely. The vocational training center she initiated became the centerpiece of every news cycle. TV channels showed her standing among workers, sketching building plans, even lifting bricks herself. Clips went viral, with viewers praising her mix of humility and determination. This is what real leadership looks like, one viral comment read. They tried to smear her, but she's out here building. That's the difference. Meanwhile, the corporations behind the smear campaign found themselves on the defensive. Their plan to destroy her reputation backfired. Old scandals, long-buried reports, and past missteps were dragged back into the spotlight. The public demanded answers. If they had time to attack her, what have they actually done for the community? At a press conference, a reporter boldly asked the CEO of a rival company, "While she's building a center for the poor, can you tell us what your company has done of equal value this past year?" The question left him frozen, face flushed red, sweat forming on his forehead. The clip instantly went viral, turning him into a meme overnight. Meanwhile, the Black CEO didn't celebrate. She calmly pressed forward with her work. In a meeting with her team, she spoke plainly. They'll keep attacking. But remember, the only thing that makes us untouchable isn't money or power. It's truth. We just have to keep showing the world that truth. Alfred, sitting beside her, beamed with pride. You're no longer the woman blocked at a hotel door. You've become a symbol, and symbols can't be silenced. Just as public opinion swung firmly in her favor, an unexpected email landed in her private inbox. The sender, the chairman of a multinational corporation with global influence, someone even the most seasoned CEOs approached with caution. The subject line was simple: an offer that could change the world. Late that evening in her penthouse, she sat before her screen, reading each line carefully. The contents left even Alfred, who had seen billion-dollar deals, wide-eyed in astonishment. I have been following you, the message read. Not as a rival, but as someone who believes you are opening a new chapter for global business. We want to partner with you on an international initiative, a coalition of major corporations to end discrimination in the luxury industry. You would not just be an honored guest. You would be a co-leader of this movement. Alfred exhaled sharply. Do you realize what this means? This isn't about a hotel anymore, or even one city. This is your chance to leave a mark on the entire world. The Black CEO leaned back, her eyes glowing with quiet pride. She remembered that humiliating moment at the hotel door, the smug smirk on that staffer's face. Who could have imagined that from such disgrace would come an opportunity to shape history itself? Fine, she whispered. If they want change, I'll give them a revolution. The city lights glittered through the glass windows like 1,000 stars. And within her, a new chapter was just beginning to unfold. The next morning, her corporate headquarters buzzed with excitement. Word of the global partnership offer had spread internally faster than the media could catch it. Executives whispered in hallways. Employees glanced at her with eyes full of pride and awe. The Black CEO entered the grand boardroom. On the table, the screen displayed the logos of the world's leading luxury and tech corporations, all expressing interest in joining the global initiative. This wasn't just a partnership project. It was shaping up to be a historic pact. Alfred spoke first, his voice solemn but thrilled. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but it's also a test. The more powerful names join, the more egos, agendas, and schemes will come into play. The company's head of legal added cautiously, if you take the lead in this initiative, you'll be stepping into a maze of power. Not just allies, but rivals in tailored suits, smiling at your face, stabbing your back the moment you turn. The CEO smiled faintly, her eyes gleaming with resolve. Do you think I'm unfamiliar with this? My entire life has been doors slammed in my face. I learned not to knock anymore, but to build my own doors. And this time, I'm not just opening them, I'm tearing down the rusted gates they've kept locked for decades. The room fell silent. No one spoke, because they all knew. Their leader wasn't dreaming. She was preparing for a revolution. The first closed-door meeting took place at a grand 5-star hotel in Geneva, Switzerland. The conference room was lavish. White tablecloths, leather-backed chairs, chandeliers glittering overhead. But the atmosphere inside was anything but luxurious. It was tense, charged, almost like a courtroom. Executives from major corporations sat in clusters. Some smiled politely, others crossed their arms with arrogance. A few impatiently tapped pens against the table. The Black CEO entered, tall and commanding, each step echoing authority. She needed no fanfare, no introduction. Her presence alone commanded the room. A director from Europe's most prestigious luxury house spoke first, his tone icy. We agree to join the initiative. But let's be clear, no one should turn this into a tool for personal branding. The air grew heavy. Several nodded in agreement. It was a veiled shot, aimed squarely at her. She smiled calmly, her voice steady. If anyone here thinks I need this initiative to polish my name, then you don't know me at all. My reputation existed long before I walked into this room. What I want is the future, a future where customers are never humiliated because of their background or skin color. If you're here, that's the only goal we should all share. Her words struck like hammers, silencing the murmurs. Alfred, seated behind her, gave a proud nod. But before the tension eased, an American businessman shot to his feet, slamming his hand against the table. Sounds noble, but let's get real. Eliminating the exclusivity you call discrimination will destroy the very foundation of the luxury industry. We sell scarcity, not charity, the room erupted. One faction cheered in agreement, another argued back, voices clashing like swords. The Black CEO gripped the arm of her chair, her eyes flashing with fire. This was the moment, her chance to prove she wasn't just a symbol, but a force powerful enough to rewrite the rules of the game. The boardroom buzzed like a marketplace in chaos. Voices clashed, some shouting exactly, and others snapping back in protest. Yet through the storm, the Black CEO remained composed. She sat upright, eyes fixed on the man who had slammed the table. And when the noise began to ebb, she rose slowly to her feet. That single motion silenced the room. You said we sell scarcity, not compassion, she began, her voice low but resonant. So let me ask, what does scarcity mean? Superior quality? Unmatched experiences? Or the right to look down on others? The room fell into a hush. She stepped forward, her hand resting lightly on the polished table. Luxury is not about building doors to keep people out. True luxury is what happens once you walk in, when anyone, no matter who they are, is offered the best. Not because of skin color, status, or bank account, but because they are human. If you believe discrimination is your core value, then you're wrong. The new generation of customers doesn't buy humiliation. They buy respect. A bravo rang out from the far end of the table, followed by scattered applause. Her supporters straightened proudly, while her opponents shifted uneasily in their seats. The American executive who had challenged her clenched his fists. But no words came. The black CEO drew a breath, delivering her closing words like a verdict. If the future of luxury relies on demeaning people, then by all means, continue down that path. But I promise you, the customers will leave you behind. If we change, however, this industry won't just survive, it will thrive stronger than ever. Her words sliced through the air like a blade. The boardroom sank into heavy silence. Everyone understood. She had just turned the tables. The meeting ended, but its impact lingered. As the conference room doors swung open, dozens of reporters swarmed. Flashbulbs exploded, microphones thrust toward her like spears. "Do you believe you just redefined the luxury industry?" one shouted. "Aren't you afraid the opposing corporations will pull out and sabotage this initiative?" Another pressed. The black CEO walked through the crowd with calm grace, a faint smile playing at her lips. Alfred followed close behind, his eyes shining as though he was witnessing history unfold. She stopped before the forest of cameras, her words deliberate and steady. Today wasn't about winning an argument. Today was about laying the foundation for a new future. Luxury cannot be built on humiliation. It must be built on respect. If some walk away because of that, so be it. But I believe far more will choose to walk with us. Her statement ricocheted into headlines within hours. Global outlets ran with bold titles. Black CEO officially leads Global Initiative Against Discrimination in Luxury. Later, in her hotel suite, she gazed out the window at Geneva's glittering lights. Below, crowds had gathered, waving signs that read, "Respect is luxury." She closed her eyes briefly, breathing deeply. The turning point had come. She was no longer just the woman blocked at a hotel door. She was now the voice of a worldwide movement. The movement spread faster than any marketing campaign ever could. Within a week, the hashtag #RespectIsLuxury had appeared in millions of posts across social media platforms. People from every corner of the globe began sharing their own stories. Times they were rejected, belittled or sneered at because of their background, skin color, or even the clothes they wore. A young African student in the UK posted a clip. "I was once kicked out of a store just because I dressed simply. Now I know I'm not alone." A single mother in Brazil wrote, "Her story is my story, and the story of millions like me." Thousands of voices poured in, transforming what seemed like one woman's ordeal into a worldwide social movement. Major outlets like CNN, BBC, and Al Jazeera ran special features, calling it a soft revolution in the luxury industry, where customers demanded fairness and dignity alongside elegance and exclusivity. In her office, the black CEO quietly scrolled through countless personal stories. At times her face tightened with sorrow, at times it softened with a smile. Alfred stood beside her, holding a cup of coffee, murmuring, "Do you see? This isn't about one hotel anymore, or even one industry. This has become the voice of millions." She lifted her head, her gaze distant yet resolute. "Then I must be more careful than ever. From now on, I'm not just representing my company. I'm representing everyone who's ever been disrespected. And I won't let them down. But every movement has its backlash." As #RespectIsLuxury swept the globe, opposing voices grew louder. Conservative newspapers published sharp editorials. Luxury is meant for the few. If it belongs to everyone, then it's no longer luxury. Some politicians accused her, "She's turning business into politics." This is self-promotion, not revolution. On social media, coordinated counter-campaigns emerged under the hashtag #KeepLuxuryExclusive. Memes ridiculing her, venomous posts mocking her every word, and personal attacks flooded the internet. One evening, Alfred entered her office carrying a thick folder, his face grim. "They're going all in, hiring entire media teams to smear your image. They want to turn you from a symbol of change into a destroyer of order." The black CEO sat silently, eyes fixed on the hate-filled comments scrolling across her screen. But instead of anger, a cold smile curved her lips. "Exactly as I expected. When people fear change, they fight it with everything they have. But I'm not afraid. They call me a destroyer? Fine. Sometimes you have to tear down the old to build the new." She rose to her feet, arms crossed, staring out at the glittering city through the glass. Out there, half the world was cheering her, and half was condemning her. But the division itself proved one thing. She had struck at the heart of the issue. Alfred nodded slowly. "Perhaps this is the real test, not just changing an industry, but changing a mindset," she whispered, firm and unwavering, "and I'm ready." A week later, the black CEO announced she would attend the World Economic Forum in Davos. It was the ultimate gathering of global power, where politicians, billionaires, and multinationals debated behind closed doors. But this time, she would stand on the main stage in front of hundreds of millions watching live. That day, the hall was packed. Front rows held the leaders of luxury conglomerates, many of them her fiercest critics. Further back, reporters jostled with cameras and microphones. Outside, thousands of demonstrators split into two camps, one chanting "Respect is luxury," and the other waving banners that read, "Keep luxury exclusive." The tension was palpable, like a fuse waiting for a spark. When her name was announced, the hall erupted in mixed applause and mutters. She walked out in a crisp white suit, no jewelry, no luxury trinkets, only blazing eyes and steady steps. Stopping at center stage, she drew a breath and began. "I know there are people out there who hate me. I know some of you in this very room want to see me fail. But let me ask, if your definition of luxury depends on belittling others, is it truly luxury or just a mask for fear?" The hall fell silent. She pressed on, voice steady yet powerful. "I am not here to beg for approval. I am here to state a truth. The customers of the 21st century will not buy humiliation. They buy experience. They buy respect. And if this industry refuses to change, it will dig its own grave." Outside, the chants of her supporters roared louder, drowning out the opposition. Inside, some rival executives hung their heads, while others began nodding slowly, eyes glinting with reconsideration. From the audience, Alfred smiled to himself and whispered, "She just turned confrontation into her stage." Her Davos speech detonated like a bomb in the heart of global power. The next morning, the headline screamed, "Black CEO challenges luxury industry, respect or ruin." Financial Times, a speech that shook Davos. New York Times, "She's not just talking business, she's talking human dignity." Le Monde on social media, the clip of her in the white suit declaring, "The customers of the 21st century will not buy humiliation," was shared tens of millions of times. It became a slogan plastered on t-shirts, banners, even billboards. The corporations could no longer stay silent. A famed Italian fashion house issued a statement. "We commit to ending all discriminatory practices in our stores worldwide." An international hotel chain quickly announced a new initiative, staff training in service built on respect. Meanwhile, brands that stayed stubbornly quiet found themselves boycotted. Their sales plummeted within weeks, a living testament to the CEO's warning. In her Geneva office, Alfred laid a stack of morning papers before her, his voice equal parts proud and astonished. "You've done what others didn't dare for decades, forced an entire industry to change with a single speech." The black CEO tapped her fingers lightly on the table, her gaze distant but resolute. "This isn't the destination. This is just the beginning. I don't want an industry to change temporarily under pressure. I want this change to seep into its blood, so that one day we won't need slogans because respect will already be the norm." Outside, church bells tolled across Geneva, echoing the birth of a new era. The greater her influence grew, the darker the shadows around her became. In hidden boardrooms of skyscrapers in New York, London, and Dubai, a group of powerful moguls gathered. No smiles, no applause, only eyes fixed coldly on newspapers praising her, sharp as blades. One man spoke, his voice gravelly. "She's shaking the foundations. If this continues, everything we've built for decades will crumble." Another tapped his fingers against the mahogany table. "Media attacks aren't enough. It's time to strike hard. We need to hit her business, her corporation itself." A plan was drafted. Contracts suddenly pulled. Financial rumors deliberately inflated. Regulatory agencies coincidentally launching investigations. Every move designed to erode her credibility and drag her down from the top. Meanwhile, in Geneva, the Black CEO received report after report. Her secretary laid a thick file before her, worry etched across her face. At least 3 investors just announced their withdrawal from the partnership. And the media is exploding with stories that our company is under investigation for financial fraud. Alfred clenched his fist. "Dirty tricks. They're trying to break you by any means necessary." She opened the file, scanning each page, her eyes sparking with steel. "They think I'll crumble under attack? They've forgotten I started with nothing. I don't fear loss. I know how to rebuild from ashes." She rose, arms folded, staring out at the glittering lights of Geneva. A cold smile curved her lips. "Very well. If they want war, I'll show them what a real war looks like." Overnight, the Black CEO prepared her counterattack. No noisy outbursts, no rants online. She chose the coldest method. Let the truth expose her enemies. In her office, the golden light cast shadows across the long conference table. Alfred and her trusted legal team sat ready, piles of documents spread out, color-coded tabs sticking out. She entered and laid a single USB drive on the table. "This contains everything I've collected over the years," she said firmly. "The moguls think they can hide forever? They forget I was once inside their world. I know the cracks they left behind." Alfred plugged it in. The screen lit up with files, forged contracts, leaked internal emails, evidence of bribery. The room grew thick with tension. One lawyer gasped, "My God. If this goes public, some of these corporations won't just lose face. They'll be dragged into court." The Black CEO's lips curved into a cold smile. "Exactly. They want me to lose a few investors? Fine. I'll make them lose entire markets." The next day, she appeared at an unannounced press conference. Reporters buzzed in confusion until the giant screen behind her displayed damning documents, proof of tax fraud, collusion, and backroom deals where corporations had manipulated policies to crush competition. She stood tall, her words cutting like glass. "They call me a destroyer of order. But the truth is, they are the ones destroying public trust. If we want a fair future, then the light must shine into these dark corners." The room exploded. Journalists shouted questions, cameras flashed wildly, while stocks of the named corporations plummeted within hours. The world knew. The battle had entered a new phase, and this time she wasn't just defending. She was striking first. The Black CEO's devastating strike sent shockwaves through the market. The corporations she exposed staggered, their stocks plunging, while the media roared like wildfire. But when the powerful are cornered, they don't stay still. In a closed room in Washington, men in dark suits sat around a polished oak table. This wasn't business, it was politics. A senior senator spoke coldly. "She's overstepping. If this continues, we lose influence not only in luxury, but across the economy. We need a political counterstrike." A silver-haired magnate nodded. "Exactly. Fines, tax audits, license checks. Anything to force her into survival mode. Let her worry about keeping her company alive instead of playing savior of the world." The plan went into motion. Days later, her corporation received an official notice, a full-scale government investigation into taxes and compliance. Conservative media blared headlines. "Is the Black CEO really clean?" In her office, Alfred slammed the stack of papers onto the desk, his voice furious. "They're turning justice into a circus. They want to smear you with political power now." But she remained composed, her eyes shining like forged steel. "They think I'll flinch? No, this is my moment to prove I'm not just a businesswoman. I'm someone strong enough to face an entire system." She rose, her voice sharp and resolute. If they want to cast me as the enemy of the old order, then I'll become the symbol of the new one. The investigation announcement quickly turned into a media storm. News channels dissected every angle while her rivals folded their arms, waiting for the black CEO to stumble. But they forgot one thing. Silence was never her style. One evening, she appeared live on national television, on the country's most watched primetime program. Under the glaring lights and pointed questions, she sat tall, unflinching. "Ma'am," the host began, "many believe this investigation will uncover the truth. Are you afraid?" The black CEO smiled faintly, her eyes blazing. "I don't fear the truth. I fear lies. If the government wants to examine every number, let them. And when everything is clear, who will be embarrassed? Not me." The audience erupted in applause. The host leaned back, squinting at her. "But do you think you're being turned into a political target?" She tilted her head, her tone sharp yet calm. "Of course. But that's an opportunity. An opportunity to prove that even when an entire system comes against me, I can still stand tall. And if I can, then millions who've been pushed down will know they can too." The clip went viral instantly. By morning, major newspapers carried the headline, "Black CEO, I don't fear the truth, I fear lies." In the office, Alfred watched the replay on TV, his eyes glistening with pride. He whispered, "You just turned a political attack into your own weapon." The black CEO sat quietly, her fingers tapping rhythmically on the desk. She knew the battle wasn't over, but once again, the scales had tipped in her favor. The day of the final investigation results arrived. The world held its breath. Broadcast live, millions watched, from skyscrapers in New York to tiny cafes in Lagos. No one looked away. A government official stepped to the podium, holding a thick file. His voice was cold, precise, deliberate. "After a full and comprehensive investigation, we conclude there is no evidence that the black CEO's corporation engaged in fraud or violated the law." The press room erupted. Reporters rushed forward with questions, cameras flashed wildly, and social media exploded like fireworks. The hashtag #SheStoodTall shot straight to #1 worldwide. In Geneva, the black CEO sat in her office, her gaze steady on the screen. Alfred slammed his hand on the desk, his voice booming with excitement. "You see? They tried to destroy you, but instead they handed you the cleanest certificate of integrity anyone could dream of." She smiled faintly, not with gloating, but with the calm of someone who had always known this outcome. "This isn't just vindication for me," she said softly. "It's a warning for everyone who thinks they can use power to smother justice." Outside, crowds poured into the streets, waving banners that read, "Respect is luxury," not as a slogan anymore, but as a truth. Just one day after the investigation cleared her name, the black CEO called for an international press conference. Hundreds of reporters packed the hall, thousands watched from inside, and millions waited in front of their screens. Everyone knew this would not be an ordinary announcement. She walked onto the stage in a simple black dress, unadorned yet radiating power. After a few seconds of charged silence, she began, "They tried to bring me down, but instead of falling, I stood tall. And today, I don't stand for myself alone. I stand for everyone who has ever been dismissed, excluded, or had a door slammed in their face." The room fell silent. She raised a folder high, then declared, "I hereby launch the Global Luxury and Dignity Initiative. This will be the world's first international pact requiring every luxury brand, every hotel, every corporation in the industry to commit to one standard: unconditional respect for every human being." Thunderous applause erupted. Echoing like a storm, she pressed on, her voice unwavering. "We will establish an independent oversight council, publishing transparent reports every year. Customers will have the right to know who truly gives them respect and who only gives them humiliation. From today forward, respect is luxury is no longer a slogan. It is the new rule of the game." The cameras panned to Alfred, who nodded proudly, eyes shimmering. On social media, the hashtag #RespectIsLuxury exploded once again, now joined by demands that corporations sign this historic pact. In that moment, the world understood. she had transcended a hotel dispute. She was rewriting the rules of an entire industry. After her historic declaration, the luxury industry trembled. Giants who had ruled unchallenged for decades now faced a stark choice: sign the pact or become the enemy of the people. Within the first week, some of the world's most renowned brands stepped forward. A century-old French fashion house released a statement: "We believe respect is the new standard of luxury." An international hotel chain declared, "No guest is small. Every guest is a VIP, but not all bent so easily." A major European jewelry conglomerate held a press conference to push back. Luxury has always been about exclusivity. Remove that boundary and we destroy its essence. The words backfired instantly. Millions of customers posted videos cutting up their membership cards, calling for boycotts. Within 48 hours, the company's stock price plummeted, forcing executives into an emergency meeting to reconsider their stance. In her office, Alfred laughed out loud as the news aired. "You see? You don't even need to force them. The public is doing it for you. They're proving that real power lies in the hands of customers." The black CEO simply nodded, her eyes firm. "This isn't my victory. It's the victory of millions who spoke up. I only lit the flame. Now it's burning across the world." Outside her window, massive LED billboards glowed with the words, "Respect is luxury," a reminder that a new era had truly begun. On her final night in Geneva, the black CEO sat alone by the vast window, gazing down at streets glowing with neon signs that read, "Respect is luxury." The city shimmered as if celebrating her. Yet her mind drifted back to the very beginning. She remembered vividly the moment she was stopped at the hotel door, the sneer on the staffer's face, the mocking laugh of the manager. Back then, she only wanted to prove them wrong. But from that single moment of humiliation, a movement had been born. Alfred entered, carrying 2 glasses of wine. He set one down before her, smiling warmly. "Do you realize? We started with a confrontation in a hotel lobby and ended with a global pact." She lifted her glass, eyes glinting with both pride and reflection. "Yes, but I'll never forget the most important thing. I wasn't fighting for myself alone. I was fighting for everyone who's ever been belittled, shut out, or had a door slammed in their face. Today, we opened a new door, and this time, it will never close again." Their glasses clinked softly. Outside, church bells rang, mingling with the cheers of crowds celebrating in the streets. The black CEO smiled, whispering to herself, "From being stopped at a door to becoming a global symbol. If I can do it, then anyone can."